Today, we are diving into one of the biggest, most important contradictions in the entire climate crisis: China. How is it possible that one country can be both the world's green energy champion and its #1 polluter, all at the same time? And really, what does that paradox mean for the rest of us? To really get this, let's start with a super powerful statement from Li Shou, who's a top expert at the Asia Society. When he's talking about the global race for clean energy, he says, there is only one player. Just let that sink in. That one line, it perfectly captures the sheer scale of China's dominance that we're about to unpack. All right, so first up, let's make the case for China as the world's undisputed green superpower. And I'm not kidding. The numbers here are, well, they're pretty staggering. Okay, get this. China has already installed 1,200 gigawatts of wind and solar power. That is such a colossal number that they actually hit their 2030 target 6 years early. We're not just talking about progress here. That is an acceleration that is honestly hard to even wrap your head around. And you can really see this dominance when you look at manufacturing. When it comes to the actual solar panels that power the world's solar farms, China makes and controls over 80% of the entire global market. It is a near total stranglehold on the basic building block of the solar revolution. And it's pretty much the same story with wind power. I mean, for the first time ever last year, the top 4 wind turbine makers in the entire world were all Chinese companies. The old guard, the European and American giants, they've been completely pushed aside. I want you to really think about this for a second. Just last year, China didn't just build more renewables than any other country. No, it built more than double the amount of every other country on Earth combined. The speed of this thing is it's breathtaking. Okay, so you hear all of that incredible progress, and it just leads to this massive question, right? If China is so far ahead in green energy, why on earth does an independent watchdog like the Climate Action Tracker give its overall climate plan a rating of highly insufficient? And that question, well, that leads us to the other, much darker side of this story. So now we have to flip the coin. We need to look at the complete opposite side of this. China as the world's biggest polluter. Because despite all those green credentials, the country's carbon shadow is absolutely enormous, and its addiction to fossil fuels is still incredibly deep. And this is where the numbers get really jarring. China is responsible for almost a third of all CO2 emissions on the planet every year. We're talking 11.9 billion tons. That's more than any other nation by a long shot, and it's right at the heart of this whole paradox. And for a long time, the argument was, well, of course their total emissions are high. Look at their huge population. But that's not really the whole story anymore. The average person in China now has a carbon footprint of 8.4 metric tons, which is almost double the global average. But here's the real kicker. Even with this historic green boom, the country is doubling down on coal, which is the dirtiest fossil fuel there is. Over the last couple of years, mostly because they're worried about energy security, their investment in brand new coal projects has actually surged to the highest point it's been in a decade. So you've got these two completely opposite forces at play in one country. What does that do to global politics? Well, the contrast in climate strategy is just dramatic, especially when you put it side by side with the United States during the Trump years. It has huge implications for the global order. I mean, the two approaches just could not be more different. On one hand, you have China, for all its problems, staying at the table in global climate talks and continuing this insane level of investment. On the other hand, you had the US under Trump, which pulled out of negotiations and actively shut down climate research. It basically created a leadership vacuum, and China seems more than willing to step into it. And Beijing isn't being shy about this either. President Xi has come out and basically positioned China as the stable, reliable partner on climate. He's promised that China won't slow down its actions no matter what other countries decide to do. It is a very direct play for global leadership on one of the biggest challenges humanity has ever faced. So where does this all leave us? What does China's this whole contradictory role actually mean for the future of the planet? The entire world is now watching Beijing, trying to figure out where we're all headed. And really, analysts and world leaders are watching for 3 critical signals. First, what's in their updated national climate plan? Second, when will their emissions finally hit their peak and start to go down? And third, what will their next 5-year plans say? That's what's going to reveal the true balance between their green ambitions and their old-school industrial priorities. Now, here's a really fascinating twist in all of this.
While a lot of experts expect China's official climate targets to fall a little short of what we need for that 1.5 degrees Celsius goal, the country has this well-known strategy. They underpromise and overdeliver. Remember how they hit their 2030 renewables goals 6 years early? There's a chance they might just quietly blow past their own carbon-cutting promises too.
And so we're left with this one final monumental question. It's really a race against time happening inside a single country, but the outcome is going to affect every single one of us. Can China's incredible green technology boom move fast enough to finally conquer its deep, deep addiction to coal? The answer to that question? Well, it is going to rewrite the future for all of us.